Please welcome Bruce Daly. If I can, so can you. If I can.
Well, hi everybody. First I want to say it's great after 10 years to come back. I'd like to tell you a little story. A couple weeks ago I was in the Colorado Convention Center. I was speaking for the IDG Roadshow. I was the industry expert in a topic about big data. So I gave my little speech. It was one of the two-track sessions. I don't know, a few hundred people there, or something like that. So I talked about it. The speech seemed to be pretty well received. I was also the EMC, so I was supposed to introduce the next track speaker. And as I was about to do that, all of a sudden, all these people started coming into the room. You know, literally hundreds of people are coming in. And of course, I'm wounded, right? They didn't come to see me, they're coming to see the next speaker. What actually had happened though is there were two tracks. One of the tracks had canceled, and so everybody in the entire event was coming into this one room. Even though the room was enormous, much, much bigger than this room, the conference organizers came up to me and they said, listen, can you help us out? We need to go down to the main ballroom because of fire code restrictions. So, could you help make that transition? And I thought, wow, this is really screwed up. Someone's really dropped the ball. How could you commit to speaking and before a large group and not do this? This is all messed up. And I said, yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. So I stood up before the audience and we went down to and it explained the situation, went down into the main ballroom. So there I am, I'm in the Colorado Convention Center, the main ballroom, over 1,000 people out there. I'm up on stage with the next speaker and I'm asking him what his name is, the exact spelling of his name. How do I say your name exactly? What is a little anecdote that I can tell about you? And he told me, so I went over to the podium and I started introducing him. And I gave him a really rousing introduction. I talked about how he'd given up his golf trip to come here and speak before this group. I was just really, really getting the energy of the crowd up, getting them all ready to go. And I look over, and what I see is I'm about to shake his hand, just like Hal did. I look over, and he's at the far end of this room. And he is walking behind the curtain. So I have just introduced this speaker, and he's disappeared. So I turn around, and I face the audience. And I thought, there are so many ways I can fumble the ball here. There are so many ways that I can screw this up. And so I didn't say anything. And then all of a sudden, out of the audience, someone yelled, joke. Now, how I ended up on that podium actually started here 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, I was a mid-level consultant. I was flying around the country. I had one of those jobs where you leave on Sunday afternoon, come back on Friday. My kids at that time were pretty little. When I would come back in on Friday, they would scream because they didn't recognize me. And so what I realized is that really, I wasn't living in Denver. I was living in Quincy, Illinois. I was living in Rochester, New York. I was living in those places that my business took me to. And I think like a lot of people here, I didn't really like that lifestyle. I felt that working for corporate America really wasn't paying me the sort of benefits that I wanted to receive as an individual and as a person. And I think even more than that, and I'm sure this is something that we can all relate to, I wanted to be heard. I was in a big company. It was really more about being told what not to do than what to do. Innovation, creativity, that sort of thing really wasn't rewarded. It was really, don't make a mistake. Don't do anything wrong. Don't step out. And I felt I had something to contribute. I felt that I had something that greater to offer the world. So I took that step. I left corporate America. I started my own little newsletter. It was about a company called Siebel Systems. I was really lucky. In fact, I had the advantage or the disadvantage of being very successful in my first venture, which is a mixed blessing. But in any event, at the time, though, there's a price to everything. At the time, I lived around the corner from here. I had a wife, I had a dog, I had a house, I had a lot of things that I don't have today. But in any event, one of the things that I learned at Toastmasters, I realized coming back after 10 years, there was a tremendous amount I did get out of the experience, did get out of it. One of this, I started my own Toastmasters. I called it the Enterprise Software Summit. And so what it was an industry gathering, and I would invite various people that I met through my newsletter business. We had it for the first 3 years up in Vail, and then for the next 3 years after Sundance. And in that, I was doing the same thing that Hal was doing. I was the Toastmasters. I organized this conference. I tell you, it's something else when you sign a contract that says you just bought $100,000 worth of hotel rooms. And you have to go out and you have to fill up that room. I started planning 6 months in advance, but I used all the skills that I learned at Toastmasters about how to introduce people, how to run a meeting. All of that proved really invaluable to me in terms of having my own event. And my own event was great for my brand. That still helped my business today. I still have people that want to do business with me because I came to the event and I really modeled it after Toastmasters and I ran it as efficiently as I could. People still ask me if I can reconvene the event. Unfortunately, one of the disadvantages of it is it wasn't profitable. I'd always lose $10,000, $20,000 a year on it. And you know, that really wasn't tenable after a certain point, so I had to give that up. So that was one thing that I learned from Toastmasters. Another thing I learned from Toastmasters, and this really surprised me, was I learned how to give feedback. I would say that evaluating people and giving them a message that they can appreciate and understand and learn from. Because I think in our culture there's a lot of, don't do this, don't do that. You know, that when you get feedback, it tends to be very, very negative. And one of the things I learned was you have to say really 3 positive things for every 1 negative thing that you say. And that's really proved valuable in terms of my supervising other people. I had someone who told me, you were the best supervisor that I ever had. And I think it was really because of the lesson that I learned here at Toastmasters in terms of giving people that feedback efficiently. The other thing I learned was really how to tell stories. And so for a while I was doing a lot of consulting with the buy side of Wall Street. I would get on the phone with 28-year-old mutual fund managers, and I learned you could take stories. If you could present stories to people in that way, you know, they can really process the information. So those were 3 lessons that I got out of Toastmasters. So there I was, standing up on the podium in front of the Colorado Convention Center, and the lights streaming at me, and I am frozen, because I'm like, I do not want to make a mistake. And then someone yelled, joke. And you know what? I thought, I've been told to joke at Toastmasters. I've had to stand up and do the same thing that Vince did today, and I said, I can do this. I can tell a joke to 1,000 people and fill in this gap in this meeting. And so immediately I'm standing there, and every dirty, nasty, inappropriate joke comes to mind, right? So I'm just going through that. I'm thinking, no, I can't tell that one. I can't tell that one. I'm arrested for that one. And then eventually I hit on a joke I could tell. And the joke is, what's the difference between a used car salesman and a software salesman? The difference between a used car salesman and a software salesman is the used car salesman knows when he's lying. And so, that's not the funniest joke I know. That's not, you know, a great joke. But for the circumstances, it was appropriate. It was a joke that didn't offend anybody. It helped in an awkward moment with the conference organizers. And as a result of that, because I helped them out, because they could depend on me in a situation that really forced me to learn on my feet, they called me back. They've said to me, hey, listen, we've got this event in New York. Can you come and speak at it? They called me back. They said, hey, listen, we've got this event. Someone's canceled in San Jose. Can you come out to California and can you speak? And that is a direct result of the benefits I've gotten from Toastmasters. Mr. Toastmaster.